Have you ever wondered, if there had never been war, would you really be sitting here right now in a warm room, holding a shiny smartphone and scrolling through YouTube so casually? If humanity had never fired a gun, dropped a bomb, or spilled blood, would you have survived that childhood pneumonia, or would you have perished in infancy from nothing more than a small cut on your knee? They say war is hell, and yes, it is hell. But the cruel irony is that this hell has been the midwife of the technological heaven we have, are, and will continue to enjoy. We are raised on simple moral stories. War is bad, peace is good. Children learn it from textbooks, adults relearn it from Hollywood movies. Tanks roaring across European fields, ships sinking in the Pacific, Jewish prisoners marching into gas chambers. History teaches us to despise war, and today the world has built an entire industry of remembrance so that we never forget its horrors. But give me 30 minutes, I'll whisper in your ear an uncomfortable secret. Without war, you might still be writing letters instead of emails, still walking instead of flying, still dying from a cold instead of getting a vaccine. Disturbing, isn't it? But it's the truth. Picture a world without guns or bombs. Sounds like paradise. But dig deeper. Without the atomic bomb, would we have nuclear energy? Without the Cold War, would the internet exist? Without World War II, would penicillin have been mass-produced, saving hundreds of millions of lives? You may want to believe such advances would have come anyway, but history is not patient. It only leaps forward when there's an explosion at its back. War is humanity's ultimate deadline. In peacetime, we drift into poetry, philosophy, daydreams under the moonlight. But when the guns fire, those luxuries vanish. Only one command remains: survive. And to survive, we innovate. We drag half-baked inventions out of labs and turn them into tools overnight. We transform fanciful theories into weapons that can change the outcome of a war. Without the pressure of life and death, would the internet have been born in the 1960s? Without the Cold War, would anyone have funded billions just to let two computers in different cities talk? I know at this point you want to object. You want to say, but what about the millions who died in wars? And you're right, hundreds of millions perished. But ask yourself, were those deaths meaningless, or were they the fertilizer on which the tree of progress grew? It sounds cruel, but cruelty may be the most honest way to speak about history. So before we go further, let me ask you this. If war is truly humanity's greatest enemy, why can't the most intelligent species on Earth seem to live without it? Perhaps war isn't merely a mistake repeated over and over, but a mechanism of evolution itself, a blood-soaked game that forced us out of caves, into airplanes, onto the moon, and now into the touchscreens of our phones. Ask a child, a student, or even a politician, what is war? The answer rings as clear as church bells. War is humanity's greatest disaster. It must be avoided at all costs. And if you grew up in the West, this line has been drilled into your head since elementary school. Teachers show you the horror: soldiers collapsing in the mud of World War I, French villages flattened by bombs in World War II. The lesson is always the same. War kills, war destroys, war strips us of our humanity. History reduced to a two-note moral song. Peace is light, war is darkness. Cinema reinforces it. Hollywood built an empire from war's memory. Remember Saving Private Ryan, with the blood-soaked beaches of Normandy? Or Schindler's List, where audiences wept for millions of Jews. Even blockbusters like Avengers or Star Wars repeat the same lesson. Villains wage war. Heroes fight for peace. And then there are the philosophers. Tolstoy wrote War and Peace to show the futility of bloodshed. Bertrand Russell denounced nuclear weapons, calling war a crime against reason. John Lennon sang, "Give peace a chance," and millions sang along, as if repeating the words would summon peace into existence. In our minds, war is nothing but a primitive monster, a foolish mistake that we, as a civilized species, should have outgrown. Memorials entrench that belief even deeper. D-Day, the liberation of concentration camps, the fall of fascism, all are commemorated as solemn reminders. never again. The image of elderly veterans laying wreaths, tears on cold stone monuments. It cements the collective morality. Humanity's mission, we're told, is not invention or conquest, but simply to avoid repeating that bloody mistake. And indeed, every modern society builds its identity on the vow, never again. The United Nations was founded with the grand mission to prevent another world catastrophe. The European Union, its founders claimed, is the greatest peace project, turning former enemies into trade partners. Even scientists are praised as soldiers of peace, wielding knowledge instead of bombs. And honestly, it's persuasive. Who doesn't want peace? Who wouldn't want a world without weapons, without borders, without anonymous graves? In our dreams, that's heaven. A heaven where children don't cower in bomb shelters, where parents don't send sons to the front, where history's pages aren't stained red. But here's the problem. All those stories are only half the truth. Like fairy tales, they soothe us, teaching neat little moral lessons. Peace is painted as the final destination, while war is shoved into hell. The story is so beautiful of disaster. It is also the invisible hand that dragged us out of stagnation. So don't rush to turn this off. Let me walk you through, step by step, example by example, how war, the villain in every fairy tale, turned out to be the mother of progress. So yes, let's tear up that fairy tale about peace for a moment. If peace were truly the mother of progress, we should have seen leaps of innovation in centuries of calm. But what does history tell us? Every world-changing invention, every breakthrough of modern civilization bears a red, painful scar behind it. Let's begin with medicine, because this is where the paradox is clearest. Florence Nightingale, the lady with the lamp, became famous not for running hospitals in peacetime, but for transforming them during the Crimean War in the 19th century. Thousands of soldiers weren't dying from bullets, but from infection. That horror forced her to revolutionize sanitation and hygiene, paving the way for modern healthcare. Without the Crimean War, would she have had the chance to turn hospitals from extended morgues into places of healing? Then there's World War II. Penicillin, the drug that has saved hundreds of millions, was discovered in 1928. For a decade, no one cared to mass produce it. Only when bombs rained on Europe did the US and Britain pour millions into making it by the ton. Not out of humanitarianism, but because they needed to save soldiers. Within years, penicillin spread across the globe, saving civilians too. Later, people retold the story as a triumph of human kindness, forgetting that it was Hitler and the war that made it urgent. And if you think it's only medicine, remember this. Sanitary pads were popularized thanks to World War I. Originally just cotton bandages for wounds, after the war, companies like Kimberly-Clark realized the products sold just as well off the battlefield. An invention from the trenches became a supermarket staple. Who dares say war hasn't taken care of humanity in its own twisted way? Move from hospitals to technology. Airplanes were once a novelty. In 1903, the Wright brothers flew for a mere 12 seconds. The world shrugged. Then came World War I, and suddenly every nation scrambled to improve them. In just 15 years, planes evolved from toys to strategic weapons. And when the bombs stopped, those planes carried mail, cargo, and eventually you on your vacation to Las Vegas. Without war, airplanes might still be circus acts. Or consider radar. In the 1930s, it was barely an idea, but when German bombers darkened the London sky, Britain had no choice but to turn theory into reality. Radar was born, saving an island from annihilation. After the war, radar became navigation technology and even led to the microwave oven in your kitchen. Yes, the machine that heats your pizza is a direct descendant of Hitler's Luftwaffe. And of course, the internet. At the beginning, it wasn't for cat videos or Twitter fights. It was a DARPA project in the Cold War. The Pentagon wanted a network that could survive even if Moscow nuked Washington. From that fear of Armageddon, we got social media, YouTube, Google, and yes, TikTok dances. So tell me, is the internet a gift of peace or a relic of nuclear paranoia? Even GPS, the tool you use to find your nearest coffee shop, is a Pentagon baby. It wasn't designed to help you avoid traffic. It was designed so missiles wouldn't miss Moscow. Today we take it for granted, but its origins reek of gunpowder. War also did what peace almost never does. It shattered social barriers. World Wars I and II forced Western women into factories, into trucks, into battlefield hospitals, not because society suddenly believed in equality, but because men were dying at the front. The result? The feminist movement exploded. Women began to win the right to vote, to work, to stand in politics. A liberation born not of enlightenment, but of the need to produce weapons. Without war, would the West have waited centuries longer to see women standing in parliament? Maybe. You see, every time bombs fall, technology and society leap forward. It's a cruel joke. War doesn't just kill, it teaches us how to live better. It's like a sadistic coach screaming at humanity, "Faster, build it, or die." And so we run, desperately inventing, desperately innovating. When the smoke clears, we look back and realize, oh, we just invented a new era. Of course, I'm not saying war is good, but ask yourself, without World War II, would humans have walked on the moon so soon? Without Soviet threats, would America have poured billions into NASA? What we call the space dream was really an arms race dressed up in romanticism. And thanks to it, today you have satellites letting you video call across the planet for free. In the harshest terms, war is civilization's most powerful engine. Peace gives us poetry, art, philosophy, but war gives us antibiotics, planes, the internet, satellites, GPS, the things we depend on daily to survive. If civilization is a car, peace is the luxury interior. War is the roaring engine underneath. So ask yourself, do we really hate war, or do we just hate the bloody price it demands? Because in the end, it is thanks to war that you can sit here comfortably, listening to a loudmouth like me ramble about history. Here's a truth that chokes many people. Hitler, in his madness and cruelty, indirectly saved hundreds of millions of lives afterward. Absurd, yet true. Because the Allies' desperation to save wounded soldiers is what drove mass production of penicillin. After the war, it spread to civilians, saving countless lives. A dark paradox. A mass murderer created the demand for a drug that saves. And not just Hitler. You may despise Stalin, shiver at the Gulag, but remember, the US-Soviet arms race gave us rockets, satellites, and eventually the moon landing. Perhaps you cried when Neil Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface and said, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." But without Sputnik, would NASA have burned billions for that dream? That giant leap was really a byproduct of a power struggle. And this is what people cannot stomach. Our progress doesn't come from kindness, but from fear and blood. Humanity is most creative not when dreaming of peace, but when panicking before enemies. Every great achievement we celebrate was born from a spasm of survival. Without evil, would good even exist to cling to? War is like an addict in the family. It destroys, it hurts, but strangely, it drags the household out of stagnation. You'd never teach a child to swim unless you threw them into water. History threw us into an ocean of blood, forcing us to swim or drown. By now, maybe you feel uneasy. How can we be grateful for something that killed millions? How can we admit that the internet, antibiotics, planes, satellites, all the things that make modern life tolerable, trace back to madness? It's like discovering the best birthday cake of your life was baked with ashes. You'll still eat it, but the taste will never be the same. Perhaps this is humanity's greatest paradox. We hate war, yet we cannot escape its cruel gifts. We pray for peace, but enjoy the spoils of blood. And silently, we know the wheels of history are already turning, preparing the next war to push us up yet another rung. You might think, fine, that was the past, but today humanity is civilized. We don't need war anymore to progress. Sounds nice, but look around. War is still here, just wearing new clothes. It no longer always bombs Paris or Berlin. Instead, it lurks in microchips, in lines of code, in research projects. Take the internet, our lifeblood. Even the latest darling, artificial intelligence, is walking the same path. AI isn't just writing poems, drawing art, or making silly TikTok deepfakes. It's being groomed by militaries to fly drones, track enemies, make decisions in milliseconds. They sell you the dream of AI writing emails faster. In reality, AI was born to wage 21st century wars more efficiently. Or look at the sky. SpaceX, Blue Origin, NASA, they speak of space exploration, of Mars. Romantic, yes, but ask honestly, why is the US government pouring tens of billions into another space race? The answer isn't human destiny, it's fear of China. Whoever controls orbit controls Earth. Once again, exploration on the surface, arms race underneath. Vaccines too. In a global panic, governments suddenly funneled money into labs at unprecedented speed, and within a year, a vaccine emerged, a medical miracle. But notice, Operation Warp Speed in the US sounded like a military campaign, because in truth, it was a war, not against humans, but against a virus. And as always, only when war knocks on the door does science sprint. Even the smartphone in your hand is a military heirloom. Its camera comes from tech developed by NASA and the Pentagon. Its processor was optimized for missile guidance. Its touchscreen was originally funded by the US military. You think you're snapping a selfie in a cafe, but you're holding a battlefield device rebranded as consumer luxury. And don't forget, the Cold War never really ended. It only changed flags. The US and USSR once raced with nukes. Today, the US and China race with semiconductors. The 2023 chip crisis shook industries from cars to computers, but at heart, it's the same war. Whoever holds the technology rules. Call it a trade war, a tech war, but underneath, it's the old fear of being left behind or swallowed whole. Imagine, without the chip Cold War, would you have an iPhone 15? Without the AI arms race, would you have ChatGPT? Without brutal rivalry between superpowers, would technology move at this breakneck speed? Or would we still be poking at a Nokia brick, watching TV with antennas? You see, history repeats endlessly. Once it was cannons, compasses, gunpowder. Today it's AI, hypersonic missiles, vaccines. Only the costumes change. The cycle war, progress, war has never stopped. And modern society, ironically, is more dependent on it than ever. We demand faster internet, stronger chips, better drugs. And to get them, nations must feed the same old monster, fear of war. It's as if humanity signed a secret contract. We want peace, but we only progress when we smell gunpowder. The bitter truth is this. While you're peacefully watching this video, scientists in hidden labs are already building tech funded by governments for one purpose: preparing for the next war. And even before bombs fall, we already know. From that fear, new inventions will emerge, spilling quietly into daily life, as if they were born for peace. So the final question is this: can we keep progressing without war? Can humanity learn to race against itself instead of only when a gun is pointed at its back? Or will we forever need the ghost of war to push us forward? Imagine a world where humans compete with kindness instead of weapons. A world where the internet was born not from nuclear paranoia, but from a desire to connect hearts. A world where vaccines were developed not from fear of annihilation, but from love of life itself. Sounds beautiful, but will it ever happen? Or is that just another fairy tale, the sweet mirror image of history's cruel paradox? Perhaps war will never disappear. It will only shapeshift. From Europe's bloody fields to cyber wars, chip wars, AI wars, and progress will keep being born from those spasms of fear. Maybe we will never cut the monstrous umbilical cord tying us to our cruel mother, war. But at least we can learn to stare the paradox in the face, not to glorify war, not to justify it, but to accept that history has never been black or white. It is a blotched canvas where light and darkness bleed into each other, where good and evil give birth to one another. And if we dare to look, we learn this: progress is never free. It always demands its price. So next time you pick up your phone, log onto the internet, take an antibiotic, or glance at satellites twinkling above, ask yourself, Are you enjoying the gift of peace or the legacy of war? And more importantly, if tomorrow the world truly achieved eternal peace, would our progress stop? No one knows the answer. But as I always say and will keep saying, history never runs in a straight line.